for those of you out there that thinks it's cool, like if you're on a horse and they start bucking and you can stay on, all you're teaching that horse to do or be is shut down, because they realize even if they're in a lot of pain and they're trying to tell you that they're in a lot of pain and you're just like, yeah, well, I'm just gonna stay on. You're telling that horse that they don't matter. You're telling this being who you're actually using their body for your purposes. You're telling them you don't care how they feel.
Welcome to Ask the Animal Healer, where we unlock the secrets of deeper communication and understanding between you and your pets. I'm your host, Dr. Allecia Maine, and each week we explore fascinating insights into the animal mind backed by science and spirit. Get ready to transform how you interact with your beloved companions. Now let's dive in.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Ask the Animal Healer with Dr. Allecia Maine. That's me. So this is not necessarily a podcast that I was expecting to make, but I had something really powerful happen this weekend with my mare and her daughter that I just I felt like I needed to share. So often we are in relationship with our animals in a way that, you know, puts us in the position of like, we're always the parent or we're always the adult. And so I've had my mare, she's a wild mare off the Maverick medicine range, and she was captured and taken to someone's place where they apparently had a paint stallion who bred her. And so she had one son that she came with, who's also a really adorable paint. And she arrived in Colorado out of the kill pen with a baby on board, which was a total surprise, but a beautiful surprise, because her daughter, I've known her since day one. I've known her since she was in her mommy's belly, probably at 5 or 6 months old. But it's really incredible to have the opportunity. And I would not have bred her. I wasn't looking for another baby, but apparently this baby was like, I am coming and I am coming to your house. And I have a feeling it was probably by the same gelding the same stallion. And so I've grown up with Bella and Siri, you know, over the last 4 years. And I was afraid, honestly, to have little baby horses because I've seen them around their moms and they're all like excitable and they're kicky, and mom's just like completely relaxed. And I, you know, the only thing I'm thinking is, please don't kick me. Please don't kick me. Please don't kick me. Please don't bite me. But as I've grown up with Pooh Bear and Bella, Siri's son and daughter, I've become a lot more relaxed with babies, and I'm just so blown away how amazing these two kids are and what I've been learning from Siri, you know, as a mom to her 2 kids. And then, you know, being like a surrogate human mom for the kids. So she's always in charge. She has, you know, full say over any corrections with the kids. And obviously, if I needed to correct the kids, I would. But honestly, they're so good. It's crazy. It's crazy how good they are. And I really do feel that it's because their mom is with them every day. She's been with them every day for, you know, at least 3 years of Bella's life and 4 years of Pooh Bear's life. And they also are growing up in a herd that is 24, 25 Mustangs strong. So they've grown up with really, really good manners in the herd. I don't ride them. I halter them when they need their feet done. That's about it. All of our interactions really are at liberty. And, I'm not even training them. I don't even put a lead rope on them to ask them to do anything. I mean, we'll just walk around the paddock together and literally just hang out because I don't really have an interest in riding them. Maybe someday, but not now. So Bella was getting her feet done on Monday, and she's never done this before, but while she was getting her front feet trimmed, she gave me like a little tiny, tiny love bite over my right collarbone. Even to the point where I was like, did you actually just bite me? Like, it did not feel like a bite. It felt like, okay, it feels like there was a little bit of teeth in there, but I didn't have a mark. I don't have a mark. And I was like, I'm just going to take that as a love bite. And I just asked her not to do it again, please. And she didn't. She was fine. And then today, when I was hanging out with Siri, I was really upset about something going on in my life that I felt that was also a disappointment to her. And I was feeling really bad and really guilty. And that was all on me. She was not making me feel that way. She was not projecting that on me whatsoever. But I just had a moment where I was kind of breaking down my feelings and my fear and like a big sense of guilt that I had for not finding our place for us for a couple years now. And Siri, at first, as I was sitting on the mounting block, she just kind of came up behind me and she was just really sweet. A lot of the time she really doesn't like to be touched yet, which is fine. I don't have to touch her. But it felt like a mom figure kind of watching over me and really tuning in and feeling into where I was at and what I was feeling at the moment. And she's just offering me her presence, like I wasn't asking her, oh, can you please heal me or can you fix me? I just was grateful. I felt like she was actually watching over me. And then Bella came over and Siri backed up a little bit. And Bella is 3 and she still nurses from her mom sometimes, which her mom lets her do. So I'm not going to stop it till her mom stops it because they're always turned out together and I don't need to separate them. And they're family, her mother will do what her mother does when her mother does it. And I'm just grateful to be able to provide that scenario for them in that situation. And I'm very, very grateful to my friend George Bronis, who has Eagles and Wild Horses Ranch and who allows us, to be there. And as I was watching Bella drinking from her mom, I think I looked down at my phone for a second because I wasn't using my phone when Siri was sitting with me and kind of sitting over me and watching over me. And I wasn't paying total attention. And out of nowhere, she just kind of got me on the neck. She didn't break skin. Quite honestly, there is a tiny red mark. And her teeth, I think, hit the back of my jaw. And at first, I was like startled and shocked because she's just never done that. Like, she's never laid teeth on me. Has she expressed her teeth? Yes, she has, because she's a formerly wild mare and she's very specific about how she wants to be dealt with. But this actually made contact, and I kind of fell off the mounting block and banged my elbow a little bit on the metal from the fence. And I was like, what in the fuck? I was like, I was just like sitting. I wasn't even doing anything. I wasn't even touching her. And I got up and I was pissed. I was really, really pissed. It felt like an attack. And I just started to breathe. And what I started to realize was she didn't attack me, because if she wanted to hurt me, there is no question in my mind that she could have sunk her teeth into my neck. She could have ripped my flesh. She could have punctured an artery. And I could have just been a goner right there, literally, if that was what she wanted to do. But just the fact that she did it was startling to me. So at first, I didn't even know what to make of it. And as I calmed myself down and I breathed and I watched her, and I was like, if she wanted to hurt me, she'd keep coming after me. She doesn't want to hurt me. She was actually trying to tell me something. She was actually correcting me. She was correcting my mindset. She was correcting my emotions and where they were going. And they weren't going in a good direction. And if this was me, like even a year ago, like I just would have stayed so pissed. I would have been like, take a hike, girl. Like, I am leaving. I cannot believe how much love I give you. And this is what I get in return. I really would have taken it personally. Really taken it personally. But what I recognize, and I'm not advocating, okay, whatsoever, for an animal to bite you. Not even in the slightest bit. But what was so fascinating to me was that when I really stepped back from it, because I learned from my white wolf dog that one of the things that happens when the moms or the dads get into fierce love mode and they correct their kids, they don't correct with anger. They correct with fierceness. And all they're doing is they're correcting a behavior that they don't want their kid to do. But it's not personal. And while I was startled, and as a human, if somebody comes at you, it's like, how could you not take that personally? I mean, it was like, what? But as I kept breathing through it, and as I kept allowing myself to just relax back into my body and check in with Siri, like, was she really intending to hurt me? And that's when I realized, I was like, no, because if she wanted to, I actually thought to myself, damn, for a mama, like, that's really freaking precise. Like, she got me, like, basically grazed me with her teeth, and her tooth hit the back of my jaw, and then her teeth like kind of grazed my neck. So like I said, I mean, I don't even have a mark really. Maybe there's a little bit of redness, but I don't even think it's going to bruise. But it was scary. And then I calmed down. And then I was like, what in the world? And she said, you have your head in the wrong direction and you needed to change it immediately. And I was like, well, you kind of could have just told me. And she did tell me in her language. And I have been attacked by one other horse that was, I mean, he just came out of nowhere and he grabbed me by my shirt and my shoulder. And he literally picked me up in the air. This was years ago. This was like 2010, 11. That was friggin' scary. This was startling, but I wasn't afraid that she was going to do it again. I really, when I asked her and she told me that this was because you really had to get like your proverbial head out of your ass kind of thing. She's like, you got to let go of those emotions. You got to be present. And I just kind of stood there for a second. I was like, wow, that's what it's like for a mama animal to correct their kid. Like, it's not personal. It can sound really fierce and it can kind of sound or possibly look very ugly. But the precision in that horse of correcting me without hurting me, like definitely getting my attention. But my awareness from what my wolf dog had taught me, she's like, it's never personal. It's just about the behavior. Clearly, she was correcting my behavior, that I was not thinking properly and I was not harnessing my mind. Let's say that, harnessing my thoughts in the best direction. And so she put a stop to it. It was a very, very humbling moment, to say the least.
Ever wished you could just ask your pet what they need? With Can You Hear Me Now, an introduction to animal communication, you can do just that. Join me, Dr. Allecia Maine, as I guide you step by step to understand and speak the language of your beloved animals. Transform your relationship today. Click the link in the notes below on AlleciaMaine.com, and we will see you soon and get you communicating with your animals with ease in their natural language.
And when I started this podcast, I thought about Bella yesterday or 2 days ago, and it was just that gentle love bite, you know? And that was on my right collarbone. And then Siri was on my left, kind of more the back part of my neck, like where my jawbone is and behind there. And I was like, that is fascinating. Like my mares, mom and daughter, were in their own way like re-educating me. And I'm very grateful that I wasn't hurt. And I'm not saying it's okay and that, you know, that's acceptable behavior. I'm not saying that. But I really got that the behavior was not meant to be vicious. It was meant to be clear and simple, and it wasn't personal. But each one of them had their way of expressing, you need to get in the present moment right now. And I just found it so incredibly humbling. Most people would probably not consider it that way or even think about it that way. And I'm not making light of it because trust me, I'm all for first and foremost safety. And when we're with our horses and, you know, there can be no question, there can be bad behavior. There can be dangerous behavior. But there can also be behavior that, how do I say, brings us more into their, it's almost like an indoctrination into their family or an invitation or a, I don't know, initiation, you know, into their family. And I would not have thought this at all when it happened, but I had, you know, this happened maybe about 3:00 this afternoon, and I'm just hopping on here to do a podcast at like 10:19, and so, you know, we're at about like 6.5, 7 hours, maybe 7.5 hours. Oh, it's so fascinating to me. It's like there's no fear in my body. There's no looping going on in my head. like trying to replay the scenario and, oh my God, what did I do wrong? And what did she do wrong? And what did Bella do wrong? It's just an interesting acceptance of peace. And I think more than anything, being able to hear Siri let me know why she did that. And even before I heard the words, I just knew in my gut. I was like, my Mare just corrected me. And thank God it was a gentle enough correction, that I did not get hurt. She did not get hurt. And it was really interesting. Bella saw the whole thing, and I let the horses back out. I was like, I get it. I'm gonna take a little time for myself. You take a little time for yourself, and you go back out with the big herd, because I had them in because I was feeding them and seeing if we can work with lifting feet. And later that afternoon, maybe like an hour or two later, Bella was off by herself, and she's usually with Siri or my gelding, Dietz. And I walked over to her, and I stood with her for a while, and she's just such a sweet, oh my God, she's growing up, so she's starting to, feel her power, and her mom is a pretty powerful horse, even though she's little. But Bella just seemed a little, kind of pensive or melancholy. And I asked her, I was like, what's going on? And she said, I really didn't like the way that my mother handled that. And I was like, well, what was, what happened? Like, how did you feel about it? And she said, I feel like it was a little too mean. She said, you didn't deserve that. And I was really blown away that she had that consciousness. And I was like, yeah, I understand, and thank you very much for that. I said, but sometimes when our parents have to get our attention, it might seem a little bit more intense. Like, I'm sure Siri's gotten Bella's attention before, and definitely Pooh Bear's attention, her son. But it was just interesting because Bella really, I wasn't expecting her to even acknowledge, honestly, that anything happened. But it was really fascinating because I could feel how much we love each other, she and I. And I can feel a closeness with her because, obviously she's not my kid, she's Siri's kid. But being her human mom, it's just been miraculous, honestly. Living with her and getting to watch her grow. And even though I'm not there on property with them, I'm so touched. It's so in the deepest recesses of my heart and my essence by the soul that Bella is and that she's growing into. Like, I knew from the get-go, she was like the sweetest, coolest little filly, She's just such an amazing kid. She's always been gentle. She's always been curious. She's always been so incredibly respectful. And now, today, I was just so blown away by how me getting corrected by her mother actually affected her. And we talked a little bit more about it. And, she said, I understand. She goes, I just wouldn't have done it that way. And I was like, aw. And then as she and I were standing there talking, Siri came and walked over. And it was, sometimes things happen and there's no words, So when I spend time with these horses, a lot of the times there's very, very few words. We just can be together. And because we communicate telepathically, if I have a question, I can ask and receive an answer. And a lot of times I can just feel what they're feeling. They can feel what I'm feeling. And there's just no words actually needed. And I've never had the experience of being corrected, I should say, by my mare. And I think it's a really important aspect to understand about horses and to decipher, I guess, because I think anger and aggression can be very different than a correction. A correction can look angry and aggressive, and you can definitely take it that way. And especially if you're in your ego, you're most likely going to respond in a not happy place, be pissed at your horse, put them away, like question if you want to be with them. How could they violate, my love? How could they violate my trust? I do so much for them. I love them so much. And all of that is justified. It really is. And it's our story. It's our story about what we think and what we believe, and it's our version, right? And when I realized and I recognized, like, oh, you were like, you need to get out of this shit. Like, you need to get out of this place of feeling bad, of thinking this way. Like, why are you thinking that just if, challenging things happen, why do you think it's always got to be bad? What if it can be really, really good? I was like, thank you for that, girl. Thank you. Because I was getting caught up in all of the things that are happening in our world today. I was getting caught up in things that I know or I'm aware of that could potentially happen. And none of that has happened. And clearly, I was not present. But even now, when I talk about it, it's just so interesting to me because, I went over to Siri afterwards after I let her out in the big pasture, and I was like, are we okay? And she's like, yeah, we're fine. And I learned that from my wolf dog, Ayana, also, that, mamas will correct, and it might seem really scary or intimidating, but it brings the younger animals back into a place of being really present in their body and really respectful of their space, who they're around, what they're thinking, what they're doing. They have to be really, really responsible for their energy and really respectful. And I guess I don't want to say I deserved it, but I guess I needed it. I needed that quick, fast correction to kind of like snap myself out of that space that I was going to. So why did I decide to share this, right? Because it can make me look like a fool. It can make me look like a bad animal communicator. It can make me look like, how did you know if you didn't even sense it? And that's my thing. Like, I can sense and feel things. But I just felt that it was important to share because I could have handled it very differently. I mean, I could have gotten furious. I could have put her halter and her lead rope on and run her around in circles and like, don't you ever do that again. And blah, I could have exploded back. And if I was in my ego, I probably would have, if I was in my wounded, traumatized ego, and I would have taken it personal and I would have made it about me, and instead of about the correction and instead of about my behavior, so I just felt like it was important to share because mares, like whether you have their kids or not, they're often given a really bad reputation, the bitchy mare. And what I've come to see is bitchy isn't really bitchy. It's usually that there are boundaries being crossed and the mare is not being heard or respected, and she will put her foot down. Especially, I don't know about all mares having kids, but especially if she had kids in her life at some point, she's probably a little bit more aware than most of us are about healthy boundaries, and what she can tolerate and what she can't. But just advocating from the horse's side, and I'm not making light of, my mare got me on the neck. I'm not making light of it. But understanding this from a totally different perspective of how I might have been out of alignment, and what she was saying was, that's enough. You're done. And as soon as that happened, I got really, really respectful. First, I got angry, but then I got respectful. And I really came back to the present moment. And that's what she was asking of me. So I'm pretty sure I'm sharing this because, one, I just felt like I needed to express this because it was a pretty intense experience. But I also wanted to share it because oftentimes if something is happening with our animal, there's going to be signs. Like I said, I don't think Siri got aggressive today. I think she was exhibiting fierce love. And that's very different than a horse being aggressive. And oftentimes, most horses really aren't aggressive. They're either experiencing some kind of misalignment or unrecognized pain in their body that we're not catching, or we're not listening to them. Like, our leadership is off, and they've probably been trying to tell us something before it gets aggressive. So I got schooled today by my mare, and 2 days ago I got a tiny bit love bite schooled by my filly. Use her daughter. But it's interesting because on both occasions, like, I wasn't being aggressive. I think I just wasn't being fully present. And they helped me come back to the present. So when you're working with your horses or your dogs, really step back for a second. If something happens, really just take a look at it. Like, whoa, first and foremost, was there something that I was doing that justified what they just did? Because, think about it. There's a lot of people that ride with spurs. There's a lot of people that ride with tie downs. There's a lot of people that ride with bits. There's a lot of people that do harsher and harsher things to a pretty sensitive but pretty hardy animal, And it just reminded me, the first thing after I got mad, I was like, stop. Was there something that I was doing that provoked this in her? And again, I'm not justifying her behavior. I'm really not. But yeah, she was like, you need to get out of your head now. And I was humble enough to just drop in and actually agree with her. So one of the first things, if your animal is acting up, always check body alignment, because they don't have to be lame, but they could very much be out. But even before that, check yourself. See where you were at 5 to 10 seconds before it happened. Were you getting any indications from your animal? I didn't get any indications from her because she was hanging her head over me as I was crying to begin with. And then when I kept perpetuating it, out of nowhere, she was just like, knock it off. But if you are working with your animals and they are giving you an indication, like they're starting to get frustrated or they're starting to get angry, I really cannot encourage you enough to back off, because that animal has no other choice other than the one you are giving it. And if you are not giving it a choice to express what it needs to express, especially if you're asking it to do something and you think they're being stubborn, you think they're fine, they should do this, I'm serious about this. Back off. Because you are asking a being that has their own wisdom and their own intelligence to do things that you want to do. And most of the time, most people haven't even asked their horse if they want to do it. They just expect that their horse is going to do it. So be really, really, really present. And, for those of you out there that thinks it's cool, like if you're on a horse and they start bucking and you can stay on, all you're teaching that horse to do or be is shut down, because they realize even if they're in a lot of pain and they're trying to tell you that they're in a lot of pain and you're just like, yeah, well, I'm just going to stay on. You're telling that horse that they don't matter. You're telling this being who you're actually using their body for your purposes. You're telling them you don't care how they feel. And it's not cool. I thought when I was younger, I thought it was so cool. It's like, oh yeah, if a horse bucks, you just stay on, you ride him through. I'll never do that again. The first thing I would do is just get off. And I know a lot of people think, well, then you're just teaching the horse bad habits. If nothing was wrong, in all reality, that horse probably wouldn't be bucking. But just because you don't know what's wrong and you're assuming they're just being stubborn, or, they just want to get their way, just back off and remember that animal's body belongs to that animal, not to you. And I don't care how much you paid for that animal. I don't think God ever thought of animals as commodities to be paid for, to be used, to be then, traded up or traded down. I think that's horrific. I think in a way it's like slavery, and we don't think about it from that perspective. And so today when, Siri went up my neck, again, I could have taken it so personally and made it all about me. And I stopped long enough to just realize, wow, she really had something to tell me. And I really had to get it. I had to not be in my ego, and I really, really had to listen. Even though I would have been totally justified for being mad. So just realize that regardless how well you might ride, regardless of how good of a trainer you might be, regardless of how exceptional a veterinarian or a body worker, we are not smarter than these animals. They know themselves far better than we do. And I would say good 98 to 99% of the issues that they face are issues that are human created. And they understand so much more than we realize. And that is so much of what my research work is about, is really utilizing animal communication to understand the consciousness of these animals. Because if that's a conscious being and not just someone that performs rote tasks, I think we have to really up level the way we behave with these animals. It's not up to us to just go and use them for whatever purposes we want. It's not up to us to keep making them spin around in circles or jump over things or, come to sliding stops or, run hundreds of miles. Like, we really need to be tuning into these horses and asking them what they want, because we've gotten away from the understanding that these beings are fully conscious. They are so aware not only of their bodies, but of what goes on with us too. They're so much more aware about us than we are actually about them. They know exactly what's taking place with us. And, when I communicate with animals, they're often, we'll work with them, we'll work with their bodies, and we'll work with their communication. But eventually they're like, I need you to share this with my human, because you can explain it to them and you can help them move past where they're stuck in this. So I'm not taking personal what happened today whatsoever with my mare. It wasn't personal. It was a very clear message that I had to stop the behavior that I was doing, and she was right. But I'd like you to just contemplate maybe for this week. How considerate are you of your horse? How well do you really know them? Not projections, but how well do you really know the essence of your horse or your dog or your cat or your bird or your turtle? Like, not what you think about them, not your projection on them, but spend some time with them. No judgments, no criticisms or looking at them with a hard eye. Look at them with a really soft eye. And just breathe and sit back a little bit and get to know who that being is that's in your life. Get to know their soul essence and let them show you yours. And just remember, if you're asking your animal to do anything for you, especially if it's an animal that you're going to be sitting atop of, don't you ever for 1 second forget that that is a living, conscious, sentient being. And regardless of what your agenda is with that being, that's their body, not yours. When I see people rodeoing or dressage and, they've got the spurs on and then they're like kicking the shit out of the horse, in the last part, or they're whipping the horse, it's like, not for nothing. I mean, I'm not criticizing or judging you, but consider the being that's beneath you. And if they did that to you, how would you feel? I thought about if I was Siri and I, went after her that way. And it was interesting. I got to see it from a totally different perspective. She wasn't angry at me. She just was employing fierce love to say, cut the frickin' behavior. But it wasn't personal. Because when I went back out in the pasture with her, I was like, are we okay? And she said, yeah, we're okay. I'm glad you got that message. So I think it's just time to really start rethinking, reconsidering, and really dropping into our bodies and our instincts, not our intellect, and really get to know the beings in our lives, the four-legged beings in our lives and the furry ones on a much deeper level than we have. Because I feel like when we do, there's going to be so much less we will put upon them, whether it's our emotional baggage. Like, I think that's what was happening with Siri today when I was apologizing and feeling so guilty. She was like, knock it off. We're present. We're here. What's there to feel guilty about? What are you upset about? And I never want my horses to take on my stuff. I'm very cognizant of that, of like, I'll handle it, but just thank you for holding space for me. So whether it's something as gentle as equine therapy, or equine psychology, or equine learning. Really step back and consider the being that's in front of you, not as a commodity to use, but as a precious soul and a sentient life that's got consciousness that you probably never even fathomed. But they would be glad to share with you. They're just waiting for you to actually relax into yourself and to see them for the incredible teachers, master teachers that they really are. And they don't need to take on our stuff, but they do a hell of a lot for us. And we've got to really take a look at that and really be way more respectful of who these beings are. And when, let's just say we like to jump horses. Well, okay, but are you considering A, it's not a natural thing, and B, you could be crippling that horse for the rest of its life. I don't think that it's your intention, but you still have to consider it, or when a horse is in a dressage discipline and they have to be so on and they cannot move their body freely because you're asking them to move the body the way you want to move it, but it's their body, or if you're in the reining world or I don't even know what the, the Western performance stuff is, but you really got to consider beyond you're here to train this horse. You got to really consider, what's this horse helping you with? What's this horse trying to teach you? I got a big lesson today, what my horse is trying to teach me, and I'm not going to forget it very soon. I have no desire to ride her. I have no desire to ride her kids. If that happens someday, great. Hopefully it'll just be a really natural, organic aspect of us spending time together. But really recognize that the truth is that your animal, whether it's your horse or your dog or your cat or your bird, if you actually see them for the soul that they are, you can learn so much more from them than you can ever teach them. And by all means, teach them the basics of being safe in this world, right? And around humans. But all the schooling that you put in, all of the stuff that's actually more for you than for them. Because never, ever, ever, never did I hear a horse say, "Oh, yes, could you please help me do my body in a way that would be better for me?" They don't, if you're not riding them, they don't need that. So the only reason they need that is because you're riding them. But given, if all things were equal, that they were out, that they were running around, that they could take care of their own bodies, they wouldn't need us. So just consider that. And again, I don't say this to make you feel bad or to shame anybody or to judge or criticize anybody. I just say this from the heart of the horse and the dogs and the cats. Like, there really are enlightened masters. Not every single one of them, even the goofy ones, though, they have things to teach. But they really came here to teach us some stuff. So just stay open to learning. Start to get a little bit more curious about the lessons, maybe the wisdom that your animals came to share with your soul. Let me know. Let me know what you find out. Shoot me a message, shoot me a comment, and I'd love to hear your awareness from this podcast. All right. See you next time. And thanks for listening to Ask the Animal Healer with Dr. Allecia Maine.
Thanks for tuning in to Ask the Animal Healer. I hope today's episode inspires you to build even stronger bonds with your animal companions. Don't forget to visit our website, AlleciaMaine.com, to discover more about how you can revolutionize your relationship with your best friends. See you next time for more insights and stories right here. Until then, keep listening and loving your furry animal family members. Bye.